So, it's 3:32 p.m. on a, Wednesday afternoon, and this is podcast number 3. The name is to be decided. In many ways, this podcast is a sequel to Pretty Song Without Sound, so keep that in mind. I'm going to be going over what's been happening over the past we're nearing a year, actually, since my last podcast. Since Pretty Song Without Sound, we're nearing a year. So, I'm actually going to be recapping certain things over the past 10 months or so, but not everything by any means. Like I said, this is a sequel, so it's going to be predominantly focused on what's been happening regarding the issue in Pretty Song Without Sound, that of the girl, who we'll call Pods for privacy's sake. You'll see why we're calling her Pods later. So, here's the basic gist of things. Pods was someone I really liked, as you know, from Pretty Song Without Sound. And the gist of it is that I asked her out via Junior Senior Dance. When that came up, I remember the weeks leading up to it, I was thinking, okay, I need to do this. I really need to do this. The only question was how, and I contemplated it for a while, and I found this song, Nande Manaya. Yeah, it was a weeb song, but it was a good one, by Radwimps. It was all about, it's a romance that's all about I'm not even sure how to describe it at this point. It's all about how, I remember there's this one line that's like, even if you weren't around, it will be like it will be like fall without all the leaves falling down, or Santa Claus without any joy, or something like that. And that song I love it, and I chose to use it. I just gave the English title, which is It's Nothing, because I don't want to look like a fucking weeb. Basically, on the top, I wrote a little poemish type thing that was like, I know it's just a dance, but if you weren't around, it'd feel like a beautiful song without sound. So maybe you'd like to go with me to Junior Senior with me for now, or something like that. And I remember so I wrote out my favorite page of sheet music by hand. I wrote out my favorite page of that song in piano sheet music, and as I may or may not have gone over in Pretty Song Without Sound, she's a pianist. And I physically wrote out my favorite page note by note, and it was painful, all I have to say. It was excruciating I think I made like a total of 3 mistakes throughout the whole thing, and each one just hurt so much. So then I was just like, okay, how do I ask her now that I've got that out of the way? Then we had this bowling night, and I just texted her near the end of it. I was like, you want to talk for a second before this is over? And then I put it in a little envelope, addressed it to her, gave it to her, and then she was like, this is awkward, I can't read your handwriting. Which was to be expected, so I just read it to her right there, and she said yes. And Junior Senior comes, and the night is basically everything I want. First we do photos, which goes fine. It's a little awkward at first, but Then we have dinner, and it's just a smooth flowing conversation for like an hour, and it's exactly what I want. And then comes the dance. The dance itself is fine. We talk. It's exactly what I wanted. And then comes the after party. Now this is where things get messy. Also, I forgot to put a warning at the beginning of this. This is obviously going to be the same story most of you have already heard. So don't expect much new in this podcast. I'm recapping for the sake of feeling like the story is completed, so to speak, because I feel bad leaving a pretty song without sound so unfinished, so to speak. So that's why I'm bothering to go through this whole story again. Anyway, so you already know what happens, but this is for me, I guess. So here we go. So the after party is where things get messy. Now at first it's everything I want. It's at this girl's house, and me and Pods go, and we're both kind of outsiders on that group of people at the party, so we're just kind of together the whole time, and we're talking, and it's a great time. We're just sharing a drink, getting drunk, talking. We talk about like school, home life, dreams, all that good stuff, and the only thing is, there's this other guy there who we're gonna call Friend A. We're gonna call him Friend A, and Friend A was probably my best friend at that time, because he was the one who helped me out of my shell back in junior year. I was very sick, as I'll go over at one point in this podcast. I was so secluded for all of high school, and I only came out near the end of junior year, and he was one of the first people that I just talked to, and we connected really well over Discord, and from then on out, especially during the first half of, he really kept me going when I was really fucking depressed. He really helped keep me going throughout the first half of senior year. And I remember I got out of my depression funk simply because he invited me out one night, and it was just such a good night out that I was feeling way more confident in myself socially all of a sudden. And from then on out, things were looking up. He was also the first person that I even told that I liked Pods. I didn't want to. I remember he liked her originally, but it sort of became a whatever thing for him eventually. And I didn't want to interfere on that. But since it had become sort of a whatever thing for him, I felt comfortable telling him, yeah, so I like her a lot now. And I remember he was the first person I felt comfortable even talking to about that subject matter. Subject matter covered in Pretty Song Without Sound. And I guess that just was really a big deal to me that he was the first person I bothered to tell. Because this is the first time I've ever actually had, as you know, as Pretty Song Without Sound outlined, this is the first time I've ever had a crush, more or less. I really couldn't, for all of high school, I really did not give a shit about girls because I was just really focused on Melee and getting better at it. So, anyway, Friend A is there with us a lot. And he's also talking to her. And I don't make anything of it at the time because he's just sort of floating in and out. He's talking to her, but he's also talking to other people a lot. And basically what happened was Pods had to go eventually she had work the next morning basically and had to leave or get home around like 1:40 a.m. And when she did, suddenly she like texted me and she Snapchatted me and was like, I got home and I'm alive, yay. And I was just like, oh, great, thanks for the night. And she was like, yeah, thanks for asking me. And I thought that was it. That was basically exactly what I wanted. And I was ready to ask her out after that, like officially. I was like, okay, we had a great night. Let me ask. You want to do that again sometime? But then she started texting friend A, and friend A was just like, friend A, he, like, I don't know exactly what was said, obviously, but all I know is it resulted in a call on my phone because his phone was dead. He was like, can I use your phone for a call? And I was like, talk to who? And he was like, Ellie. And I was like, okay. And as soon as I gave away my phone, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. We all know where this is going. And I'm just like, from that point on, I'm just like, fuck it. And chug the rest of this vodka bottle. And I'd already had a shit ton of vodka. I just had the remainder of it then. And then, I was just like, really depressed from that on out. I remember I just had my head down for a while, and eventually everything started spinning. So then I just turned to Derek and was like, Derek, how much nicotine is too much? Because I'd also smoked like a full pod, and I just right from then on out, I just dry heaved, and I really felt like I legitimately felt like I was going to die because I felt so disoriented and I was just spasming on the floor more or less as a result of alcohol poisoning. It was like probably borderline worth taking me to the hospital because of how much I had. Like, Derek was ready to until Mike talked him out of it. And I'm glad he didn't, because then they would have traced it back to that girl's house, and that would have fucking sucked for her for obvious reasons. Everyone would have found out about it. It would have been not pretty. So, Sunday comes, and I just try to put off the fact that I know that Pods and Friend A were talking, and were probably talking romantically. And I just knew that in the back. I remember I even had a drunken nightmare about it that Saturday night. And basically, then I got confirmation of that later on Discord, and then he was just like, I was just like, what did you guys talk about? And he was like, oh, her feelings for me. And I was just like, okay. So are you moving forward with this? And he was just like, yeah, we're going on a date tomorrow. And I was just like, well, yeah. I don't really believe, that's the thing, I don't really believe in guy code, so I wasn't mad at first. Guy code in the sense that, if for some reason you don't fucking know what I mean, guy code in the sense that you shouldn't date someone else's crush when you know that they're attracted to them. You shouldn't do that as guy code, and I think it's kind of bullshit, because they're their own person, and they're entitled to do what they want. And if you really like them, if you really care about them, you want them to be happy, and you won't get in the way of their happiness. So I'm not gonna... So you can't, like, get mad over that, necessarily. But there are other things I didn't consider at the time. So I just spend 2 days of absolute depression in bed, not going to school, watching this shitty anime called Scum's Wish about this girl and this guy who both have unrequited loves, and as a result they just fuck each other more or less to get over it. And it's really not a good show. I don't like it. The characters is terrible. It's over dramatic. It's cartoony. It sucks. But regardless, it was kind of very related to what I was going through, though. So I just spent 2 days in bed depressed. There's not much to say about that. But yeah. So then there's the Wednesday back. And the Wednesday back is when I noticed that something's wrong, so to speak. I go talk to all my friends and stuff about the situation, and they're all just like, yeah, it's a dick move. And I remember it wasn't until I talked to Cade about it, and he was like, he gave me like a psychoanalysis of the situation. And I was just like, at that point, I was just like, when even he was like a third party. We weren't the best of friends at that point, but so he was sort of a third party since we weren't the best of friends, and he was basically saying the same thing as everyone else. Yeah, this was kind of a dick move. Like, this was grimy on Friend Day's part. So from that point on, I was like, okay, maybe something is wrong. Maybe. And then I started to get mad, because I was like, well, so he was the first person that I even felt comfortable talking to about this. He knew how much she meant to me. He knew that it meant that that asking her out was like something I've been working towards all the school year, and that it meant the world to me, really. He knew how irreplaceable she was to me. He knew all of that. Like, I know he did. And yet, still, when the opportunity came, it wasn't like he didn't tell me, oh, I was talking to her and she seems interested, if you want to say something, now's the time, or, hey, just so you know, I'm starting to develop feelings for her. There was no, like, all I would have wanted was like a heads up, more or less, so I could say what I needed to say. But he just instead decided to just immediately that Monday move forward and go on a date with her. And it's just like, yeah, it kind of fucking sucked. So I just texted him. So basically on Monday, as it turns out, they hooked up, more or less. They didn't, Burn Athen hook up, that is. Didn't have sex, obviously. Burn Athen hook up. But you know what I mean. So I just texted him that Wednesday after I talked to Cade. I just texted him, we need to talk. And he's just like, okay. Just talk to me now. And I was just like, no, this is something you do in person. And then he was like, just talk to me now. And I was like, no, we'll talk tomorrow. That's cool. And he was that's like, okay. 30 minutes later, he texts me, just tell me what you want me to do. If you want me to stop talking to her completely, I will. At which point, I'm just like, why the fuck did you even do this? Like, what was the point? Like, if you're just gonna ditch her like that, if you actually like her, why did you bother putting our friendship in jeopardy? Like, what? Because I'm not gonna hold their relationship hostage. That would be such an incel move. Like, I'm not gonna say, yeah, you guys can't be together, and then I'll be happy. It's like, that's not gonna make me happy. That's not gonna fix what the issue is. The issue was that he asked her out before no, not asked her out, well, I'll get to it, but the other thing is, at first he told me that she basically told him, I would have hooked up with you if you were still at the party. That's what she said to him, apparently. Now, apparently, as I learned later on, it was the other way around. he said it to her first. I'll get to that, but I just want to put that out there now for some context to why I might seem upset right now. He was forward with her, in other words, before, when he knew that I was pursuing her like that. And again, it's not that I claimed her. It's not that she owed me anything. It's that it's about him, not her. It's about that he was my friend, and he knew how much this meant to me. And, like, I feel like I'm just repeating myself at this point, but I just want to make it clear that this isn't about, that these are two autonomous young adults who can obviously make their own choices and don't owe anything to me. But at the same time, it sucked. That's the bottom line here to me. It sucked on his end. And it really just hurt me a lot. And when he told me, if you want me to stop talking to her completely, I will. I'm just like, you're completely missing the problem. Like, the problem isn't that you're in a relationship with her. The problem is that you kind of undercut me. You threw me under the bus for a hookup. That was my problem. So apparently she was there, Pods was there, and was like really upset, like crying or something. When I texted him, she was like over his house. And I don't really know the details. But Thursday comes, and he doesn't show up to school. I genuinely don't think it was because of that. I think it was because of school-related things. But still, Thursday comes, he doesn't show up to school where we were supposed to talk. And, not much happens because of that. Then, I decide to talk to Mr. Barber, my religion teacher, about the whole sitch. And he was very sympathetic. He was like, he agreed with me that the issue wasn't that they were in a relationship. The issue was how it happened, how he went about it. And he sort of also gave a psychoanalysis where he was like, giving someone all the power in this situation like he did to me may seem like a good move, but ultimately it's unhelpful, because where there's going to be collateral damage, someone's going to get blamed, and giving all the power to me suddenly by saying, if you want me to stop talking to her, I will, is just damaging the situation, not helping. Anyway, so now we're going to learn why we're calling her Pods. Basically, he texts me after school. I'm hanging out with Derek and Cade again, and he texts me, Chris, I have 3 pods for you. It was just like, Chris and I are still friends, I think he said in our group chat. And he just texted me and was like, Chris, I have 3 pods for you. Do you like watermelon? And I was just like, okay, so that's his peace offering, his fucking pods. When I told Cade that, he was just like, oh, so that's how much a woman is worth these days. Which is like my favorite part. It's like my favorite meme to come out of this whole situation, is that one woman equals 3 pods. But anyway, then he was like, I just didn't say anything, and then he was just like, oh, just talk to me, dude, or something like that. I just gave my phone to Derek, and dad talked him for about an half hour, something like that. He just explained everything that he was doing wrong, but I'm guessing none of it really got through to him because of what happens next. So Friday comes, and it's just sort of a cool down day. I'm assuming we're on break, sort of. And I text him, I was like, can we talk tomorrow? And he was like, I'm busy all day tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Then I also just text him, hey, just so you know, you're really important to me, you mean a lot to me, I want to fix this, and it's really important to me that it gets fixed. You mean a lot to me. Yeah. From then on out, I was just like, okay, maybe he doesn't want to talk because he thinks I'm too mad at him, and he's like worried. So that's why I decided to send that text to make it clear that I really wanted to resolve things. But I really should have asked what he was doing all day that would make him busy, because it really wasn't hard to figure out in hindsight. And so as it turns out, Saturday comes, and he's in Center City with Pods on a date. Again, in the middle of our conflict. Again, I don't want to hold their relationship hostage. I have no right to. If they want to be in a relationship, they should be able to. But the fact that he was still moving forward with it when it was like, just put it on ice for a minute, dude. Like, just let us talk, and then you can do what you want with her. Like, it's not my call, really, but if you want to preserve our friendship, that's what's gotta happen. But anyway, so at that point, I just cry, more or less. Just because I'm just like, how could he do this to me? Like, he knew how much this meant to me. And yet, how could he reopen the wound? How could he wound me like he did, and then just reopen it like it's nothing by posting a picture of him and her on his story and making a big deal out of it? Like, why would you do that? And I'm just like, okay. Yeah, so that's why for the first time in a while I cry over it. Because I was just feeling that hurt. And while I'm crying, I decide it's time to text friend B, who I will also remain anonymous for privacy's sake. Now, friend B, I have to go into them a little. Friend B, I met in my civics class, and because of that, I met them in my civics class, and I guess we just sort of slowly became friends. Right off the bat, she just was someone I felt pretty safe around for some reason, and I just liked her a lot. And I remember we ended up sitting next to each other by chance in pre-cal, and I was just like so happy about that. And then, so from then on out, we started talking more, and we became friends, but we hadn't had like a real serious conversation yet. And I decided that's the time. So I text her and I'm like, hey, can you talk today? And she's like, hey, yeah, of course. And she's really understanding. And we talked to her. We talk. Basically, we meet up on Cathedral Hill, and we just talk for like an hour. And I'm just like, I just lay out my whole side of the story, and she's sympathetic towards it. And we're both just like, they're probably okay. I just tell her everything I've told you guys up until now, basically. But then I also drop something else. I say, I don't know if you know, I don't know if she knows about this, I don't know if you know about this, but I didn't know about it until Thursday night, but he took pictures of her and sent them to people in our class. He took pictures of them hooking up, of her down to her underwear, like topless, and sent them to people in our class. So I dropped that, and of course, friend B is like, I have to tell her. Her being Pods, because friend B and Pods are best friends. They know each other since elementary school. And so we're just like, they're probably fucking right now or something at this point, because he had a home to himself that day. Mike, friend A. And so then we wait until friend A is away from Pods, and then Pods is called by friend B, and when she starts to explain the situation to her, she's just like, can we just meet up in person? So Derek gives us a drive, and we go pick her up, and we basically give her a little intervention where we explain what he did, that he took photos of her. I explain my side of the story. She explains her side of the story about how she was uncomfortable with how far things went physically. Things did go fuck. They didn't fuck, but it was like some, I don't know, I don't want to even say it, what friend B told me he'd let. I'm not even gonna say it, privacy's sake. Basically, so then it's like this, and she's like teary-eyed during the conversation, and is obviously upset because she has to end her first relationship in less than 5 hours or something like that. And from then on out, so then she goes home, breaks up with him, obviously, because just that day he had kind of pushed her into becoming his official girlfriend. And from then on out, I guess, let's just start with the aftermath. So the immediate aftermath is that friend A is acting like nothing is wrong the next Monday. Like the Monday after everything happened over the weekend, after she broke up with him, he was just acting like nothing was wrong. He was being all friendly with me, and I was just like thinking in my head, I was just like, dude, what the fuck? Like it was one thing when this whole guy code side of things happened, but then it was a whole nother thing when he did this to her. Did that photos thing. Like, that's a whole nother, I thought what happened to me in the situation was bad, but like what happened to her was a million times worse. And it just sucked for her. And I'm just like thinking, so he's just acting all friendly with me. And eventually what it leads to is him, so it's like I'm just sort of tolerating it, more or less. Yeah, he's just like, why do you look dead, one day? And I'm just like, don't say. Because it's like, it should be obvious. It should be pretty fucking obvious. And so, what happened next? So he's acting like that for the week. Meanwhile, there's like several things going on at once here. Meanwhile, we have this prose poem, and I wrote it about the situation, because I had a lot of feelings left after the situation happened, after that whole abortion of a relationship. So I wrote a poem that I titled Air, because I was like just feeling empty. So I was like, okay, let's write about this. Let's write about my feelings. And here's how it goes. I spent like a week refining it, and I think it's pretty cringy, personally. I think this poem is cringy as fuck. I think it's poorly written. I don't think it's good. But it made, as Derek said, apparently it made the girls in my section like cream their pants because they just loved how it sounded or some shit like that. I don't think it was that good. But I'll read it anyway for y'all. I started planting this garden back in the twilight of October. You were the first person I felt truly safe around, so I told you I was building it first. I'd tell others, but not till after I confided in you. You were happy. You were the first I'd tell of my first. I'd never felt the desire to plant a garden. Other kids felt it back in 4th grade. I dismissed it. I suppose I was hardly more mature at 17 than I was at 10, considering I scoffed at that one till the cusp of young adulthood. And you helped me plant the seeds. Even when they refused to grow during the winter, you kept every conversation I had fertile. Even you kept helping me water them. Even when they refused to grow during the winter, you kept helping me water them. And when the spring approached, when some green stuck out of the ground, every conversation I had fertilized the soil. Shallow infatuation matured into a deeper affection, first seeds of admiration wrapped up in a nourishing fruit. And as you watched the cherry blooming, and as you watched the cherry trees blossom with me, back in fall, I expected this garden to burn down. Despite some roses blooming, I still expected it to burn down. She saw me putting the garden together for some time, and would have visited sooner or later if she was interested. And I was ready for it to burn down, on my terms at least, once I gave her the garden's key. Just about everyone's first garden dies, one way or another. But I didn't expect you to light it on fire. So when I walked outside one morning and you had uprooted every rose, tulip, and carnation in your recklessness, with no warning, I had to wonder if it was all a joke to you. Why did I let you in? Think of you as a brother. And once you realized what you had done, you told me I could choose which one burns. My or your garden. Your and her garden. I decided if her garden lit up her eyes so, I had no right to take that away. And to her, years from now. Down the coast, around the border, there's been writing on the wall. It was always inevitable. I thought of apologies for mistakes I haven't made yet. I want to forget stuff that never happened. I being I right now and you being you right now. This won't work. I don't like to think of this guy named Darwin existed, that I'm not the kind of guy. It was only ability in math and subtraction. That if you come close, spines will prick your heart. Inferior to those who were made the fittest. The truth of myself is that I wasn't born any or worse than the rest, at some inherited disadvantage. It's just that there was no deeper connection to be found in that conversation filled with slurred speech. And when they closed the bar and told us to leave, that was the end. Every individual has a certain amount they can give and how much they need to take. Finding a compatible pair is miraculous. And in the ashes of the aftermath, all I can think of is how blessed are the forgetful. My sentiments are left stranded on a deserted island. In the end, I got far more severe burns than In the end, you got far more severe burns than I. They say relationships are a battlefield, and no one can lure another back into war before their wounds have closed. By the time yours have healed, you'll be running into a world where I can't follow. No one has your shape, and it's hard to imagine finding another that fits the fresh hole inside me. Mike lost an earlobe to give his family a few dimes. Romeo drowned a bottle of poison ahead of time. And Gatsby took a bullet for someone else's crime. And Asuka's arm got split down a straight line. Even if it's love, it is destructive. So there we go. As you can tell, I don't think it's anything that deep. It just obviously refers to everything that happened. We got the garden metaphor for my feelings for ponds. We got him burning it down and then telling me, okay, well, we have our friendship garden. You gotta choose between that and you gotta choose between that garden and my and her garden. Or, I don't know if I'm saying that right. You get it. Why did I let you in? She should think you were a brother. Why did I trust him in that way? when he was just gonna betray me later. When it lit up her eyes, so I had no right to take it away. If their relationship made her happy, I had no right to take that away. I never wanted to. I never wanted it to turn out like it did for her. Then the second half, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. I tried to avoid pitying myself by saying like I was born worse than the rest, but yeah, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. That's what I have to say about our relationship. The conversation filled with slurred speech was obviously referring to our drunken conversation that night, where I thought, okay, this is it, this is finally it, and there was actually nothing there. Nothing real, I guess. I don't know. But yeah. So, friendship. So now, next on the outline I have is just friendship. Basically. Well, first, so now that I've gone over the poem, I might as well go over what happened to friend A after that. So friend A is, like a month later, becomes really depressed and starts like just leaving all our groups and stuff, all mine, and decides that I hate him. And it's like, it was really frustrating, because it's like, how do I explain that what you did wasn't okay without you thinking that I just straight up hate you or something like that, or that I don't want to be friends? Because I still wanted to be friends after that. Like, I didn't want to lose him over that. And I didn't, I think. I didn't. And it was just a frustrating situation. I guess I won't go too much into that, my relationship with him. But I will talk about my friendship with Pods and friend B now. So because of that, I remember at the end of the night, I just told friend B to wait as she got out of the car, and gave her a hug, which is like the first hug I gave anyone in more years than I could count. Probably since like 8th grade. That was the first, when I think about it. Like, yeah. Basically, so friend B, and Pods and I kind of form a trio from here on out. We have the civics project and start a Snapchat group for it. And I remember there was one night where me and Pods, so I'm still hoping for a relationship with me and Pods at some point. I just know it can't happen during the school year, because she was just at that point done with high school boys, understandably. We had this we were on Discord one night, the night before it was due, this project, and we talked till like 5 a.m. or some shit. And just talked about life and stuff, and the project. And it was chill as fuck. So then summer comes. Again, when I said I'm glossing over, there was a lot of other shit going on for me around this time, but I'm not even gonna go into it right now. I'm just gonna stick to this Pod situation. So then summer comes, and the friendship continues. We have this one night where we're just burning our school papers, and we're just burning our school papers and drinking, and we get really fucking drunk. Me and Pods. Friend B is just it wasn't fun for friend B, because she was just had to deal with me being knocked out, more or less, and her throwing up. Still, we had work together. We had work together. Pods went on this trip to China around the start of July, and that was really nice for me, that 2-week period, because I just got to focus on Melee and not her, and I just got to focus on what I cared about most. But there was aftermath. Of course, there was drama involved in the trip to China. Mostly because she met up with this other guy who lives in China while she was over there. And he, after like a year of liking her as well, finally confessed to her. And he did it over Facebook Messenger, like the day they got back. And it just... She said it was like the nicest thing anyone ever wrote to her, and that it almost made her cry. And I was just like, when I just heard it, I was just like, yeah, so what are you gonna do? Have a long distance relationship across the ocean? And she was like, I don't know. And I was just like, yeah. So I just played it cool. And of course, immediately after that, after we were done hanging out, I was just like, fuck me. Because it was just like, I'd spent the whole summer waiting to confess to her that way, to write something to her, saying how I felt, and it felt like I just let the opportunity slide by, because again, now this is a great example of things being completely different in terms of another guy pursuing her. This guy, we weren't really close friends. We didn't, I never told him about my liking her. I never claimed her. It wasn't anything like that. So it's like, I wasn't mad in this situation. I wasn't mad at anyone. I wasn't. Because I guess I was kind of friends with this guy, but we never talked too much. Just an aside. It's a good example of why I was mad in the former situation and not in this one. In this one, I was just sad. If I was mad, I was angry at myself. So then there's a party at one point where we get really drunk again, and yeah, I guess there's not much to say about that, but it was a good time. And then friend B goes on a trip to France. So that was sort of an opportunity to me to hang out with Pods one-on-one. One time I hang out with her with Cade, and we just chill. It was really nice. We went and we talked, we went and got bread and dipped it in some olive oil, and it was tasty as fuck. The next time we hang out, me and Pods watch Whiplash. And that was also, and we just talk, after we finish, she just tells me about how it's like jarring for her, because she's like, her piano teacher is just like Fletcher in the sense that she can be really nice, but then suddenly, when it comes time to practice, she just becomes harsh and demanding. Obviously not Fletcher levels of that, but anyway. Now we're finally at the confession. So I decided that week it was about time to confess to her properly for the first time. Even though I knew I liked her. It's like it was something I had to say out loud. I couldn't just leave it on the back burner like that. So sorry, I'm just trying to find something. I remember I just talked to Barber about it for like 2 hours. And I just talked to Barber about it for like 2 hours, and we agreed that I should say something to her. And sorry, I'm trying to find something. I actually, ahead of time, before I said anything, even though I wanted to be honest, I also wanted to make sure I said everything I wanted to clearly. So I actually wrote out what I was going to say ahead of time and just rehearsed it and like just memorized it, literally. And so here's what I ended up telling her. So I know it's really obvious to so basically I picked her up one night, I just said we need to talk. I picked her up one night, we drove to a park, and when we got there I was just like, so I know it's really obvious to everyone, but I still have a huge crush on you, I still find you impossibly cute, I'd still love to go out with you sometime. The truth is, I look at you and I see a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I spent 2 years speeding by. There's so much uncertainty in my life right now. I don't know what's going to happen with school, what I'll do with the English degree, where writing will go. But I've spent so much time sitting on my hands, waiting for the right time to say something, thinking I wasn't good enough. Now I'm confident this feels right, and I've never felt more sure of anything. If I just don't say anything while you go fulfill someone else's dreams, I'll never forgive myself. I hated how vague these feelings were at first, but it's not like that anymore. I like how you would raise your hand in civics and forget what you were gonna say. I like how you would put your hair in a ponytail. I like when you start texts with hello, exclamation mark. Or that thumbs up you do when something depressing happens. I love how hard you work through messy family life. I like it when you drink because you're always fun to be around. That's just what I like about you. Something along those lines is what I say. So I just completely poured my heart out, more or less, even though it was kind of rehearsed. I just wanted to make sure I covered all those bases of, like, what I specifically liked about her. I didn't want to be vague with it. And I did. So she said, I made it clear that she didn't have to respond right away, because I didn't want to pressure her to say yes or no right there. And that I didn't want to fuck our friend group up. She said she had so much respect for me, that she always had fun hanging out with me, and that she always felt she could talk to me about mental health type issues that she really wouldn't with her other friends. But that she couldn't do anything right now, because she's currently interested in Alex, this other guy, who I won't go into. Then she said she didn't want to make things weird for me, and we could take a break from hanging out if I wanted. Told her I'd sleep on it, and I was just like, yeah, I just want to physically cut her out of my brain right now. So I take her home. We have work together for the next month. And I just, like, try to ignore her more or less. But there's one last talk I make sure we have. So after I confessed, after I confessed, I had another conversation with friend B about it, because I was just feeling really heartbroken, and was just feeling like shit. So I talked to her about it, and that made me feel a lot better. Then what happened next? Next I had another talk with her when she asked, like, how I was doing a month later at the start of September. And I was just like, well, honestly, it's still eating me. Because it was. I was still, like, my self-esteem just plummeted over the whole thing. Because it was like, yeah, it's like, because I tried to be the best possible me I could for her, and it, like, still wasn't enough. And that just really killed me inside. And so we talk again, it really helps me. I really appreciate it. I appreciated that she was listening, even if she didn't have she couldn't fix it, obviously, but it still helped me feel way better. And so after that conversation, that second one with friend B, I call up I text friend Pods and say, hey, can we talk one more time? And I just told her, like, I just wanted to make it clear that I felt bad ditching her after being her friend for like 6 months, and that when I felt healed and ready, I wanted to be friends with her again. Yeah, that's the gist of it. So she agreed to that. She was like, yeah, just reach out when you're ready. And I was like, great. Fast forward to the middle of October, and I'm still feeling like shit about the whole thing. I have a bad night at Melee, and so I call up Gretchen for a third talk. And I was just like, yeah, I'm still feeling shitty. And she clearly did not want to have the conversation. I really should have just not said anything in the first place, because it had repercussions later when she learned I was still hung up on pods. And I'll get to that. There was also a car accident at early October that me and friend B were in, which I'll get to later as well. I'm not going to describe it in detail or anything, but I'll describe what's important about it. The takeaways. So then, I have a conversation with Scott Fraser, sort of the new Chris Barber for me at the college. And I just talked to him about how I'm struggling to focus in systematic theology class because of all this, and how I'm just a distracted person in general. And that I was like, I know you're not a psychologist, but yeah, I'm struggling to maintain my focus when I'm still this hung up on the girl. And he just helped analyze the situation, and it was really helpful. I wish I had recorded the conversation almost, because it's like he said a lot of good shit that I just straight up forget now. And I just wanna remember it. But regardless, so I get in a fight. So next, fast forward a couple weeks after that talk, and I get in a fight with friend B. It starts out political. The gist of it is, I think people should be held, I was saying that people should be held responsible for their party's political beliefs, in the sense that, like, in the specific sense, for example, that the Trump administration is basically defining transgender people out of existence, or at least attempting to. And I was saying, and I made a joke comment that was like, vote Democrat if you support basic human rights. And that made her very upset. And I defended myself because I was saying, like, I was saying that it was really just, when she was saying, like, you're villainizing all Republicans, I was just like, well, you're equivocating really fucking hard here. Or it's equivocating in the sense that it's mincing words to the point where they don't mean anything. So it's like, Republican should mean you support this set of laws and policies, to me at least. And to just respond to any accusation with not all Republicans is kind of a cheap way out, to me at that time at least. Now, right now, I'd probably, if I were to amend my original position, I'd say, well, people are stupid. They'll vote for things they don't really understand they're voting for. And And, you know, maybe I would be okay with someone voting Republican if they could find a candidate that openly was fighting against these negative social changes enacted by conservatives. But, yeah. I won't go too deep into it here. It's a whole conversation on its own. I think it's all I'm going to say is that I do think it's complicated. I don't think it's as simple as not all Republicans, or simple as, I don't think it's as simple as either side was making it out to be there. I don't think you can equivocate. You gotta be careful about equivocating. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I will say that there tends to be a misconception about me where I'm perceived as an activist or as a persuasive person when I'm not trying to be. I'm only ever trying to get to the facts. And that can cause friction in relationships when someone takes a political comment seriously, or a political idea. But regardless, and there's also this misconception that I have like an ego of some sort, when in reality I never think I'm that smart or anything like that. I don't think I'm that smart. I just think I listen well, and I know when to delegate things to experts, and that I have a lot of sympathy for suffering groups. A lot more sympathy than your average conservative will have. But regardless, let's get back on topic. So it starts off like that, and from then on out, I'm just, after that she just ended the conversation with something like, "This is why I don't like talking politics with you, because you're unreasonable." And so I just texted her. It was her birthday that day, so I just texted her. I was like, "Do you still want to hang out tonight?" And she was like, "We can hang out with everyone." And I was just like, "Okay, yeah. I know what this means." So I just texted her, "I feel like you're mad at me, just generally speaking." And she's like, "I'm mad because you won't let pods go. Because you won't let pods go." I keep trying to be listen and be a good friend, but I just don't know if I can hear that anymore. And I'm like a little blindsided in the sense that I'd only talked to her about it like explicitly 3 times. And however, despite it only being 3 times, they were clearly exhausting for her. Exhausting conversations. And I really should have picked up on that. What else was said? She was like, "It's just this one thing," and I'm just like not buying it, in the sense that I feel like it's something more than that. It's a more deeper frustration. And so a few days later, we quote unquote make up, and I just explained myself a little more, and I think I agree not to talk about pods anymore, which, like, I'm fine with that as a boundary. But it's still not over in the sense, I'll get to why it's, like, not over. So following that, I start to feel a lot better about things. I'm playing a lot more Melee, and I'm succeeding at it way more. It helps me feel better. I have another conversation. Over break, I hang out with this kid from middle school, and it like just reminded me of the value of friendship and shit like that, and how nice it can be just to have someone new to talk to. And because it's like it's like more or less I wasn't yearning for a relationship with Pods nearly as much as I used to. I was happy with what I had. I have another conversation with Scott where I explain that I'm feeling ready to become friends with Pods again after several months of silence. And basically, yeah, I'm feeling ready. And then this just becomes a tough conversation for me. Basically, so I'm feeling ready to talk to her again. And I text her. So I text her, "Hey Ellie, just wanted to let you know that I'm feeling a lot better about things lately. I'm actually interested in other girls, most of all. I don't know if you changed your mind about wanting to be friends again, and friend B could be right, and things might be irreparable, but I'd like to try it out and see how it makes me feel. More than that, I still feel bad about kind of ditching you. It's finally starting to feel like I've healed. Just let me know what you're thinking if possible." So then she replies, "Hey Chris, thanks for reaching out, and sorry it took me a while to reply. I have also been thinking about this a lot lately, but I actually feel uncomfortable with the idea of becoming friends again. I think we both suffered on some level because of this, and now that we both had time to heal, I think it's best for us if we just leave it as is and move on. And hope you can understand where I'm coming from, and I'm sorry for the change of heart." So when I read this, I literally vomit in response. And I just feel fucking sick to my stomach. And I remember I told Cade, when I was thinking about talking to her again, I told Cade, if it really turns out that she doesn't want to be friends again, I'm just gonna feel like slitting my wrists. And, yeah, I guess I was serious. More serious than I thought I was. But anyway, I reply, "Honestly, I never picked up on the toxicity of the friendship going your direction as well. Sorry I caused you to stress like that. I guess I'm sorry I ever asked you out in the first place. I never wanted to compromise our friendship. Hopefully we can reconnect sometime in the future if you ever feel comfortable with that. I won't push anything though. Thanks for everything. I did genuinely enjoy spending the time I did with you. None of that was fake. Hey, it's nothing to feel guilty about. Sorry if I made it sound like that, and it's not your fault, so really no need to apologize. Thanks again for understanding and for being honest about everything. I know it's not easy by any stretch. Best of luck out there." So this is a very final cutoff of the relationship, as you can see. And I'm just like feeling like complete and utter shit about that. And what it comes down to is that it feels like I'm just a toxic person. That's how it feels right now. And back then. Now, even though I quote unquote made up with friend B, even though I'd quote unquote made up with friend B, she had still been really distant. And I'll get to that, but it just felt like, and I couldn't talk to her about it either, about how shitty I was feeling. So I was just like, okay, I'm just a toxic person. How about it's time to leave forever? Yeah, that sounded like a good idea at the time. And I remember I was inspired by, in terms of methodology, I was inspired by 13 Reasons Why Suicide Scene, where the idea of just cutting away and letting it all pour out of you just seemed so appealing. So I go to a party, and I'm like, I have a good time. I'm just like, okay, it'll be a good last night with friends. And I get home, and I decide, okay, it's about time to go. Put on some old clothes, take a bath, get in the bath with the clothes on, and just start to get to work. But before that, I'm just thinking, like, fuck, if Pods hears about this on the news, she's gonna feel guilty. So I just text her, and I'm like, so my brilliant idea is just text her and be like, hey, I'm slitting my wrist in a moment. Don't feel like it's your fault if you hear about it. All my problems are mine, is what I said, I remember. And it's like, yeah, I just didn't want her to, I guess I just didn't want her to think I was doing it because of her, because I wasn't. It wasn't really because of her. If anything, it had more to do with my friendship with friend B fading away. And the fact that I couldn't talk to her anymore, emotionally. So just the fact that I couldn't lean on her for support after that happened just killed me, literally. And it's just like, yeah, it just made me want to die. So basically what happens next is, despite all that, I still want to send, friend B still, like, means the most to me out of everyone, so I've sent her a text that's like, thanks for everything, bye. And it's like, what I thought would happen would be she would tell the other people, and they would call the police, but it would take them a minute because they would have to find my address and tell them to go to the address, to go to my address or something. But the plan was it'll be too late by then. So I get to work and try to make some deeper cuts. But before I can, it turns out one of my friends had my mom's cell phone number for some reason, and they were able to call her and say, "We're getting weird texts. You might want to do something." And it's just like, she came bursting in, of course. So from then on out, I go to the hospital, get closed up, and so before I could do any serious damage. 1 minute. So, hospital stay. So I go to the hospital, and I have to go to a mental hospital, obviously, and it fucking sucks. Let me think. You know, I'll go into what the actual stay was like sometime, but what you need to know is that Derek brought people to visit every day of the week, every single day, and that meant a lot to me. And what also meant a lot to me in the other way was just the fact that friend B at no point came the whole time while I was in the hospital for suicide attempts. And you might say, well, maybe she just doesn't like hospitals, maybe she's just uncomfortable there. But when Brecca was in the hospital, she immediately decided to go there and visit him twice, in fact. So it's not that. So I just had to figure she's done with me. This is the message I got from that. One other detail of the stay is that I called Pods when I got there. It was like, really sorry for sending you. We just talked for like 15 minutes, and I was just like, I'm really sorry about sending you that text, more or less is what I said. And I called friend B and said the same thing, basically. But still, she never came to visit. So I just figured she was done with me. So now we're up to the trigger of this podcast. I keep vomiting. So this is actually a second take right now. I didn't like how the original turned out quite. It sounded a little too accusatory, a little too passive-aggressive. I just didn't like it. So we're trying it again after I took a little break. But so, friend B. Here's the deal. As I was saying, where was I? That she never came to visit me while I was in the hospital, and I just got the message from that, like, we're done. Like, I can't handle being friends with you if you're gonna do this shit. That's the message I got from that, and it really fucking hurt me, to say the least. And if it was, and like, you might say that I'm overblowing it, but it's like, that's not the only thing. We never hang out like we used to. She used to always ask me to hang out. She never does that now. We never talk seriously about anything. It's always just surface level shit. As far as I can tell, she didn't even want to sit next to me in stats class. Like, there were 3 separate times where I would sit next to where she was sitting the previous class, and she would move her seat. And now when I look in there, she's just always sitting in the exact same spot. And it's like, you might think, oh, she was just trying to meet new people, which fair enough, but she sits next to Brecca in chem class. Like, we don't have that many classes left together. Like, maybe I'm just being petty and sensitive, but it's that fucking hurt. Just that little gesture. And then there's stuff like just these little comments she makes, like, that happens to me a lot. I have written down. What that means is that one day she was just like, yeah, she thinks we're way better friends than we are. That happens to me a lot. And then she, like, noticed I was there and just took it back and was like, well, not really. But I got the message. So basically, I thought we were closer friends than we were. I like to think that I was pretty reasonable in assuming we were best friends when she told me I was one of her 2 best friends. When she told me I could talk to you about anything, when she told me that she felt like I was always on her side. Like, was none of that true? Or did you just change your mind when I stopped being fun to be around? Or what? What is it? Like, let me just read what she wrote in my yearbook. Chris, where do I even begin with you? At the beginning of this year, I only knew your name, and that we're really close friends. Honestly, it's one of the highlights of my year. Seriously, we went through a really tough experience together, and we came out closer than ever before. You are a friend that I never knew I needed, and now I know that you are a vital part of my life. I enjoy your incredibly insightful comments and civics, the incredible meme sharing, especially Bean Hair Ghost memes, and the genuine care I feel for you and from you. And I know that this year you decided to push yourself to the limit, especially socially, and I am so grateful. I can't really describe how valuable you are to me without just rambling and repeating myself, but I hope that you know I care about you. I'm here for you, and you are worth more than you'll ever know, but I hope you will come to know. I love you, dude. Love, friend B. So, and it just feels like, now, it just feels like that. Like, reading that almost made me cry. And now, it's just like, none of that is even there anymore. It feels like I barely even know her now. So there are side comments like the one I just mentioned, and it's like, I get it. She realized that she liked Pods more than me, and yeah, I get it. I just wish she didn't have to rub it in like that, even if it was indirectly. And it's like, and she thinks that, like, she can't even say Pods' name around me anymore. Because she thinks I'm that it's just a trigger for me. I don't know. But what else we got? There was this other line where she was like, she asked me about this polling group thread about how it's like, should you hit someone if they use a slur? And I said no. And she was like, oh good, you're not too far gone. And again, same thing where she took it back immediately and was like, well, I didn't mean it that way. And it's like, yeah, I got the message though. That she thinks I'm this extremist. Politically, she thinks I'm just this extremist now, with these insane ideas in my head, and we can't even connect anymore. Like, and she's just scared to talk about anything remotely ideological with me because of that. And it's just like, great. Just what I needed. And then there was this thing today where she was like telling me and this other guy about a problem she was having, and then she was just like, I can't fix anything. You can't fix anything, so it's probably just annoying you. And it's like, I don't know if that's her new mindset, just that, like, we don't talk about things we can't fix. Like, I don't know if that's just her general mindset now. She has me muted on Facebook, so there's that. I just know this because she never notices, she never likes my comments in the polling group, and she didn't respond to the one poll I posted, so she definitely has me on Do Not Disturb, or whatever that option is that lets you basically unfriend someone without unfriending them. And then there was this other poll where it was like, has anyone ever reached out to you continuously when you wanted them to stop? And of course she said yes, and I'm like, I wonder what that's referring to. Great. Good to know. Which, like, I'm not quite sure how she made it clear that she wanted me to stop reaching out to her. Like, she could have just told me the third time I talked to her, like, I can't do this again, just so you know. Instead of just being angry at me. I don't know. And, like, I get it. Having a friend with mental health issues can be really hard. It's never an easy conversation to have when someone else's mental health struggles are indirectly affecting your own. And there's nothing wrong with putting your own mental health first. Like, I completely get that. I just wish it had somehow... I wish there were clearer boundaries right now. I wish that, it's like I feel over pods now. Like, I don't feel the need to talk about her anymore. And it's like, can things go back to normal, please? Or no? Like, what happened? Just, what really triggered this vomiting thing is, I think it was because it was the Tuesday before last week. It was the Tuesday before this ANC event, this teacher reunion type thing where you meet up with faculty and staff for afternoon refreshments and stuff. And of course I got to see Pods, and Friend B there being friends without me, as usual. And, well, as in the new usual is. And it just really fucking hurt me. Like, that night I just really wanted, a large part of me just wanted to fucking overdose. And it's like, yeah, it just made me feel like complete and utter shit, to say the least. And it's not like it's because I'm romantically hung up on Pods still. It's because I feel like I've ruined our friendship. I feel like I've ruined my friendship with Friend B too, and it makes me feel incredibly guilty. And seeing them together like that only just reminds me of how much I've destroyed. And it just kills me. That's the issue. And I think that's why I keep vomiting every day. And that's probably exactly why Friend B doesn't want to be friends with me anymore. Is that I'm too much of a mess, and she can't handle it, apparently, or something. Something along those lines, if I'm understanding her correctly. But, like, what else am I supposed to interpret from the fact that she didn't visit me once while I was in the hospital? Like, how do I... Like, when I asked a group on Facebook about it, they were just like, you should let her go. And it's like, yeah, that's gonna fucking hurt me so much. You have no idea. Easier said than done, to say the least. I don't know. Bottom line, I understand that she wants to preserve her own mental health, and I'll respect that. I just wish that didn't mean the total end of our friendship, of us hanging out, of us spending. The other thing is the car accident, which I said I'd get into, and I completely forgot about. It makes her, because we were in a car accident together, it makes her she says it makes her nervous around me. So I can't tell how much of this rejection is the PTSD and how much of it is just her not wanting to be friends anymore. Like, I don't get it. So it's probably a little of both, but one doesn't help. And bottom line is, I respect her decision to put her own mental health first, I guess. I just wish she had been more clear about it. Well, I mean, she was perfectly clear about it when she said, I can't talk about that anymore. But, like, what she wasn't clear about, and what still feels unclear to me, is, like, so that means we can't talk about anything serious now. Because she just hasn't. Like, there was this one car ride where I was taking her over to Kate's, and just the way she was talking to me was just so, like, fake. And she was like, at one point she was like, why am I running my mouth? And I was just, like, thinking in my head, probably because you don't actually want to be talking to me, and that you're just trying to make conversation with an acquaintance, not actually talk to a friend like you used to. Like, that was the answer in my mind. And it's just like, yeah. Not quite sure what else to say. Other than that, I understand where she's coming from, I think. I just would like a more clear, we can't be friends anymore, instead of this weird limbo we're in, where we're just lunch table conversation partners sometimes. And, like, I remember one thing she said when we were having that fight was, I don't know why you're acting like this is the end of our friendship. Well, this is exactly why, because to me, it kind of is the end of the friendship when you say we can't talk about anything real anymore. I don't know. Enjoy the music. This is Cosmos from Cowboy Bebop. It's exactly the kind of piece I needed to hear while I was monologuing about this shit for, what are we at? An hour and 30 minutes. So, yeah. Good. I hope I said everything right, I guess. Because I definitely don't want to frame this as being her friend B's fault or anything. Because really, it's my fault at the end of the day. Yeah. Goodbye.